and welcome to this little talk I'm going to give on the history of Wigan Little Theatre. I'm going to give a history of the theatre, how it started, the building, a few people who were involved in it, and a few other odds and sods. So here we go. The two people who can probably lay claim to being instrumental in sowing the seeds of the theatre were a Mr. Gurney and a Mr. Fred Kay. In 1952, Mr. Gurney arrived in Wigan from a faraway Newcastle-on-Tyne to begin a job as a factory inspector. When he wasn't checking factories, he was trying to find like-minded people who would be interested in forming an amateur theatrical company in the town. The war had gradually killed the amateur stage in Wigan. The drama societies, which had been the social side of many churches and clubs, were forced to drop the curtains on their shows because the home and fighting fronts had called up their members. Mr. Gurney persevered, and in the autumn of 1943 found a kindred spirit and got the support of Fred Kay, a Wigan specialist in speech therapy, who had premises in the shadow of the parish church. In the 1930s, Fred had a touring repertory group known as Fred Kay and his Players. They toured the UK performing plays. Later in life, he gave elocution lessons to Jennifer Moss, who played Lucille Hewitt in the early days of Coronation Street. They had soon recruited enough like-minded enthusiasts to form a play reading society. The meetings were held in Fred Kay's premises on Sunday evenings. The handful of enthusiasts who went there didn't think it was right to be using Mr. Kay's light and coal for their entertainment. It was, they said, taking advantage of his generosity. Also, the group were growing in numbers, so they found another premises in King Street for their weekly Sunday night theatre meetings. Each member paid a shilling, that's 5p in today's money, a week towards the cost of hiring the room, and took it in turns to bring a bag of wood and some coal to give some warmth during their meetings. Whoever provided the coal, made the fire, did the dusting, and generally cleaned the room after the Sunday meetings. Their group became so successful, they found they had outgrown their King Street premises, and in 1944 started looking for larger premises, which they eventually found in a room at 56A Market Street. The interest in the membership grew. Their keenness could only develop in one direction. They wanted to test themselves before a live audience. They wanted to see if the people of Wigan would support them. In November 1944, they put on the play Arms and the Man, which was produced by Fred Kay, a classic play written by George Bernard Shaw. The venue was St. Michael's Parish Hall in Shaw Street. It was advertised as for 4 nights only. The response from the Wigan public was amazing. On each night, all of the 350 seats had been taken, and they were forced by popular demand to add 2 extra nights. Again, these played to capacity audiences. The answer from the Wigan public was decisive. They wanted and would support their own theatre company. Plays were rehearsed and sets made, then performed in St. Michael's Church Hall. 4 plays a year were staged. One-act evenings and various social events helped provide the maximum interest for members until the end of the war. Those happy band of players who worked in arms factories or taught in the schools around the town or served the community in other ways wanted a theatre of their own. In order to fulfil their ambitions, they started on a series of money-raising efforts. However, their first efforts couldn't be said to have been a roaring success. The hot pot supper made a measly 2.5 halfpenny, just over a penny in today's money. Undaunted, they pressed on. The perseverance paid off when in 1946, it appeared the gods were smiling down on them, and the derelict old Alliance Picture House, also known as the Canada Picture House, Wigan's first cinema, in Crompton Street, came on the market. With the money the group had already raised, 950 of interest-free loans, and a wonderful gesture of Mr. Fred T. Hanson from Parbold, who was the owner of Ince Wagon Works, who offered the group £4,000 and asked for no interest. They were able to purchase the building. Now, this is a little bit about the actual building itself. The Alliance Hall was built in 1893 as a Salvation Army citadel and opened as a cinema in February 1909 under the name Canada Picture Palace, derived from the Canada Picture Company distribution of the films shown there. On February 23rd, 1909, the Wigan Observer reported the opening in the following terms: that there is room in Wigan for living pictures. Entertainment is provided by the success of the latest edition, the Canada Picture Palace, in the Alliance Hall, Crompton Street. The Alliance Hall is well adapted for entertainment of this class, and the management care well for their patrons. The innovation of the cinematophone, from which one gets songs as well as pictures, is growing very popular. One of the latest productions in the picture line is a powerful story told under the title Pensions for Working Men, which is followed with keen attention by the audience. In 1936, the Canada was in the hands of the New Alliance Photoplays Limited, who installed the British acoustic sound system for their new talkies. At the same time, the bench seating was replaced by 750 tip-up chairs. The name of the cinema was changed to the Alliance Picture House to little avail, as people continued to call it Canada until it closed in 1945. Now, I've got a few little anecdotes here about the cinema, the building. It was one time, when it was the cinema, it was also the two shops, one on either side of the entrance. One was a sweet shop, and I got talking to Ron Westhead, who has the sweet shop in the market galleries, I think it is, who told me that his grandfather had a shop there and that he used to make the sweets in the cellar of the theatre. I've also found a piece in the Kinematograph Weekly, February 23rd, 1933, which says that for only having one attendant at a children's matinee, at which there were about 380 children, present Joseph Allen, proprietor of the Alliance Cinema Wigan, was fined £5 at Wigan. Now, I don't know how much these kids paid. I don't know, probably paid twopence each. So there wasn't much left of the attendance money after he'd paid his fine. Another thing, a couple of things I've recently found, I've not had time to put them on the screen. I'll just read them out to you. December 2nd, 1909, the Kinematograph and Lantern Weekly. A managerial change. Mr. W.F. Jackson, until recently manager of the Canada Picture Hall, Wigan, has now undertaken the management of the West Hartlepool show, where he intends to make things hum. In the December 23rd, 1909, which is the start of the cinema, another cutting in the Kinematograph and Lantern Weekly, and the Situations Vacant and Wanted column, wanted at once 2 good operatives for new openings, must understand both currants and lime. Permanency for good men, must assist in billing. Apply W.E. Jackson, Canada Pictures, Wigan. Then underneath, wanted manager who can lecture to pictures. Permanency is right man. Workers only need apply. Apply W.E. Jackson, Canada Pictures, Wigan. And then one in the same magazine, under the miscellaneous column, wanted second-hand iron house, also 18 feet sheet, rock bottom price, to Jackson, Canada Pictures, Wigan. And I can only presume that the sheet, and I don't know what I've tried to research what iron house is, and I can only presume that it was something, a framework to hold the sheet, which obviously was for a screen. And then in the Wigan Observer and Districts Advertiser, 3rd of May 1913, there's another one which says, shop adjoining Canada Pictures, shop adjoining Canada Picture Palace to let from May 12th. Apply Canada Pictures, Crompton Street, Wigan. So, as you can see on the screen, it was also used for evacuees during the war. And I've got another little anecdote here from about 11 years ago. A lady from London contacted me to say that it was her grandmother's 100th birthday, and the family were trying to put together a This Is Your Life kind of book for her. Her grandmother and her daughter and son, which is this lady's mother and uncle, were evacuated to Wigan at the start of the war. And she was telling me that when they came, well, it was her grandmother was always talking about when they were evacuated to Wigan. She said that she and her daughter, my mother and son, my uncle, were evacuated to Wigan. They were initially billeted in the cellar of a cinema, which was next to a canal. Now, I presume straight away that the canal she was talking about was in fact the River Douglas. One day, someone had broken into the cellar where they were sleeping and stolen all their blankets. A few days after, they were moved to a house a couple of 100 yards away on the same road, near to the town centre, with a Mrs. I can't remember her name, just call her Mrs. X. And had I any information of where it could have been, and had any photographs? I said, well, straight away I knew the cinema would be the Alliance and the canal would be the River Douglas. I checked the electoral rolls for the years they were there and found that Mrs. X name living at number 8 Crompton Street. I did find a photograph of the area of Crompton Street from the 1950s, but house number 8 unfortunately had been demolished. I did send the photographs of the Alliance building, how it was then and how it is now, and a photograph of Crompton Street area showing the location of where number 8 would have been. She contacted me a few months later to say that the birthday party went down very well and that the photographs brought some happy memories back to her grandmother and how grateful the family were for my help. Right. Interruption there, telephone ringing. Now, in austerity Britain, it was a condition of the building licence for the conversion of the cinema that as many jobs as could be done by amateur labour should be. For labour was bound priority and materials by finicky regulations in the national cause. The post-war reconstruction was one of the theatre's finest hours. Expert advice duly delegated to eager members from various walks of life directed the stripping of plaster and pickaxing of underground passageways each evening, while by day the joiners and plasters spread their masking finishes. The cinema had been reached by a central passage between semi-detached shops, which we spoke about earlier, with accommodation over the shops. The dividing party wall between the two was demolished to provide a long basement under what had been the shops. A foyer was constructed for what had been the shop floors and the former passage to the cinema. On the floor above, from what had been the first floor domestic accommodation, a coffee lounge and a balcony crush hall was formed. On the floor above, 2 small rooms became the wardrobe department. One of these later became a members' bar before a full licence was granted to the theatre. A passage was created from the long basement at the front of the theatre, under the auditorium, to lead to 2 large dressing rooms and green room under the stage. At the same time, a storage area for furniture and props was created. Both alterations involved the removal of a great deal of rubble unearthed by the volunteer labour. After this, concrete floors were laid in a new passage and what became known as the hold. Public laboratories were created in the former shop basements together with a small kitchen. Lavatories and washing facilities were made by the actors for the actors under the stage. The heating system reused the old coke furnace, the central heating pipes and radiators being adjusted as required. The stage itself was extended out into the auditorium to make a stage depth of 20 feet with a plastered cyclorama on the back wall and a covered cyclorama pit. The proscenium width is 30 feet with a height of 15 feet. Wing space being minimal at about 4 feet down stage right and left. A little more when extended over the staircase wells and fire exits up stage right and left. Adequate space was created above the stage for barrel lighting, curtain tracks and borders by removing the plaster ceiling and exposing the loft areas. Scene storage was under the auditorium, the flats being brought up to the stage through trapdoors in the stage floor. These trapdoors could also be used during a production. Now, on Sunday, March 6, 1948, Fred Firtloff, the chairman, called on the mayor, E. Maloney, to declare the theatre open. Also present were the Earl of Crawford, Alderman T. Ramsden, G.W. Piggott, who was a solicitor in the town, and J.P. Conroy, who was the associated with Conroy Fruiterers, which everybody knows was in the marketplace, Market Square. The secretary read many messages of goodwill from prominent persons in the amateur theatre movement up and down the country. Mr. Philip Robinson of the BBC, who had given the group extensive knowledge on the constitutions and ways and means to find funds, made this wish. May you always get the plays you want, the actors you need, and the audiences you deserve. On the 10th of March, the week after, 1948, the doors were finally opened at the Wigan Little Theatre for the performance of Oliver Goldsmith's famous play, She Stoops to Conquer. It was a great success and ran for 10 nights. No doubt aided by a local printer's typographical error on the publicity porters, when he stated the theatre would be forming the play She Spoops to Conquer. Not to be outdone, a later production was advertised as The Lady's Not Fit for Burning, which I've got the programme for that one. No doubt there was an advert in the following week's Observer advertising for a typesetter. The beginning of this new theatre enterprise in Wigan had an echo more than 200 miles away in the House of Commons. There, when legislation was being introduced authorising local authorities to include sixpence in their rates for encouraging culture, the redoubtable Mr. A.P. Herbert MP spoke in strong terms against such a levy, and to strengthen his argument, he made a derogatory remark saying something to the effect that spurred the thought, but it could mean that even a place like Wigan would have its own theatre now. Councillor W.J. Price, who was then in charge of publicity for the Wigan Little Theatre, replied by sending the critical MP a letter, politely informing him that Wigan already had a flourishing theatre run by amateurs. The deflated Mr. Herbert apologised and tendered a donation of 3 guineas, which was £3.03. Now, one of the stalwarts of the theatre from the start was also the chairman, was local man Fred Firtloff. He was born in Ince in 1896. He was a distinguished actor who had made more than 1,000 TV and radio appearances. His TV appearances included in 1956, alongside Jack Howarth, He was better known as Jack Walker, the landlord of the Rovers Return in Coronation Street. He played in the play My Sister and I. In 1957, he appeared in A Tale of Two Cities as Dr. Manette with Peter Wingard as Sidney Caton. Peter Wingard, for all you old people, elderly people, oh, well, I shouldn't say. Just, was better known as Jason King in TV's Department S. I think that was in the 60s. In 1957, he played Grandfather Briggs in Champion Road. And in 1960, he played Ben Weatherstaff in The Secret Garden, alongside Prunella Scales as Martha. At the end of his 14-year tenure as chairman, the theatre had over 600 members. It had repaid 2,000 of the £4,000 loan and had an additional asset of a thriving puppet group led by Miss Betty Hanson. The theatre had produced its 100th play, given 1,000 performances and welcomed 20,000 patrons. On his retirement after 14 years as chairman, he presented with a record player and records by the theatre. He died in Colwyn Bay on 19th of June, 1960. Development of the theatre has been ongoing all the time and continues to be redeveloped and updated. The sound and lighting equipment have been regularly updated too. The heating system now uses a modern gas-fired boiler. In the 1970s, a new workshop and scenery store was built, stage right. At the same time, below this, a new bar, coffee lounge and rehearsal space. This was created in the mid-1980s. A major reconstruction of the building was undertaken. The front of the house and the basement were remodelled and the bar area was updated. The auditorium was reseated, the dressing rooms and facilities remodelled, and the entire building redecorated at a cost of £250,000. The money coming from fundraising and grants. In the early 21st century, new rehearsal facilities was created at the rear of the building, eliminating the need to hire rehearsal space. This extra rehearsal space now enabled up to 3 productions to be in rehearsal at the same time. And this is a few photographs showing you, that's the auditorium with a new refurbished seating and lighting. That's the Crush Lounge upstairs, again refurbished. For anybody who doesn't know the theatre, this staircase on the right goes up to the lighting gallery and the wardrobe storage space. And there's 2 staircases either side here, which go down into the auditorium. This is the bit they built on the back, and as you can see, it's just an extension of the original building with they've matched the bricks up very well. Inside this building here, it was 2 rehearsal rooms. This one is the downstairs rehearsal room, and that one is the upstairs rehearsal room. Now in 2016, the theatre purchased a building adjacent to the theatre, which is on this one you can see on the right hand side. It had been used as a day centre by Wigan Council and had recently become empty and put up for sale. The theatre decided that this was an opportunity to get extra space, so badly needed, and so purchased it. There was much debate as to how best to utilise the building. It was finally decided to convert the building into a modern coffee lounge and bar, including 2 new toilet facilities. The coffee lounge and bar were at that time located in the cellar area of the theatre. This area was prone to flooding and was inaccessible to disabled people. Now this is the picture of the extension. You can just make this part on the right hand side of the theatre was the part which enabled access from the foyer into the coffee lounge. The new facility was officially opened on Wednesday the 3rd of April 2019 by His Royal Highness Prince Charles. That's a picture of the new bar area and the coffee areas at the bottom. A momentous occasion at the theatre's history. He even went home with a jar of locally produced honey. The theatre were informed prior to his visit on the various protocols they had to follow, and that the prince only drank tea with honey. A theatre member who kept bees duly provided a pot of locally produced honey. After the proceedings, the prince was asked if he would like a cup of tea, and was told that the honey in his tea was locally produced, and would he like to keep the pot, which he greatly accepted. I can imagine him ringing up and saying, "Oh, Camilla, next time you go to Tesco's, don't buy any honey. I've got a free pot from the Wigan Little Theatre." Here he is watching an excerpt from the recent production Ladies Down Under. Seemed to be enjoying himself. And here he is meeting the cast and members of the youth section. The cast was these 7 people on the right, and you can see these young people on the left who are members of the youth section of the theatre. A few weeks later, on March 13th and 14th, another famous celebrity, Sir Ian Mckellen, gave 2 performances of his one-man show to capacity sellout audiences. These were the first performances at the start of his countrywide tour. Ian Mckellen lived part of his young life in Wigan, having been born in Burnley. His father got a job as Wigan's borough engineer, so the family up sticks and moved to a house in Parsons Walk, where he attended Wigan Grammar School. He said that having watched Shakespeare plays at the Wigan Little Theatre, that got him interested in the theatre. He never actually performed at the theatre. However, his first performance on stage was in Wigan at the Baptist Church in King Street. He was also the scorer for Wigan Cricket Club. His name is still signed, and you can still see his name signed in the scorebook, which is still in possession of the cricket club. He very generously donated his fees to the Wigan Little Theatre for his 2-man show, which he for his 2 days he performed in Wigan. The money to be used for the benefit of young and up-and-coming actors. Now this is the old theatre. I think that was taken in 1957, and that is a scene from a play. Well, it looks like it's Alice in Wonderland, about 1947-48. That's another scene from a play about the same time. I don't know what the name of that play is, but it obviously wasn't a comedy. There seems to be a lot of dying people about. And again, another one from about the same era, which to me looks like it's Pygmalion. Here's a program, an early program, 50-51, and that's the program from which I mentioned earlier, where the Ladies Not for Burning. There's another program from 1949. A play written by Mary Haley Bell, who is in fact, well, she died now, who was the wife of John Mills. So I suppose Haley Mills got a name from a mother's maiden name. Here's another few modernist programme fronts. Inspector Calls, which has been produced many times at Wigan Little Theatre. That's from Gigi the Musical, and I think that was I don't know what date that was. And that's from the Sunshine Boys. Don't know who those are. And there's another place, Witness for the Prosecution, which yours truly appeared in. There I am as the court usher. Now this guy, who you can see above, Frank Cullen, his claim to fame was he actually appeared in an early episode of Only Fools and Horses. He told me that he was in university in London, and the guy who was sharing rooms with did extra work, at the television studios. On this particular day, he persuaded Frank to go down to the studios with him to do some extra work, and they ended up as two transvestites in a pub. In fact, the actual episode was on a few months ago, and I think I've still got it on record. I think I've still taped it and I've still got it. Unfortunately, Frank's died now. Right, now as a new member of the theatre, I was part of the set building team for about 8 years. I was asked if I would write a short piece for the annual magazine, and how I first became involved in the theatre. Now, most members were asked if they could write a short piece on how they became involved, and usually she said, just write half a page or a page, and this was my contribution for what it's worth. It all started one Friday night a few years ago. We were in the bar at the Wigan Little Theatre having a drink after watching a play. My friend went to the bar to get the drinks. He came back excitedly waving a piece of paper in his hand, like Neville Chamberlain returning from Munich. "Tonight, I'm going to make your dreams come true." "Where are they?" I said excitedly. "Who?" "The two 18-year-old blonde lap dancers," I drooled. My eyes scanned the bar for two scantily clad girls. "No, not that dream," he said, waving the leaflet in my face. "This," pointing to an audition notice for the forthcoming pantomime Sinbad the Sailor. "They want a pantomime cow." Now, everyone who knows me knows it's always been a long cherished ambition of mine to be a pantomime horse. I can see my career's master's face now. "What do you want to do when you leave school, Hunt?" "I want to be a pantomime horse, sir." "A bloody pantomime horse? 5 years at grammar school and your ambition is to be a pantomime horse? What does your father have to say?" "Well, he's always telling me I should get myself a stable occupation, sir." But I digress. Anatomically, a cow and a horse aren't that far apart. Not in panto land, anyway. Anyway, my mind was made up. I approached Philip behind the bar. "Hey, Philip, how do I go about auditioning for this panto?" "Oh, you need to see director Ellen Fitton. She's about somewhere." Ellen duly appeared. "I believe you want to audition for the pantomime. Which part?" "The cow. Front part preferably, unless the other part is an 18-year-old blonde lap dancer." But I suppose fulfilling two dreams at once was asking a bit too much. "Can you dance?" "Can I dance?" I say indignantly. Am I not a founder member of the original Liverpool and District branch of the Fred Astaire Tap Dancing Society? All farts for short, I said whilst performing what I thought was a very good interpretation of Fred's soft shoe shuffle routine from the film Broadway Melody of 1940. I could tell by the shocked expression of disbelief on her face that my expert performance in the art of terpsichore, it is a word, had greatly impressed her. "I'll give you a ring at the beginning of December when we start rehearsals. There's no need to come to the audition." I went back to my mate. "I'm in," I said to her and our respective wives. December came and I waited expectantly for the phone call. The days passed as I sat by the phone in my recently acquired red velvet smoking jacket and my well-thumbed copies of Variety magazine, waiting for it to ring. Now, I've read that when you're acting a part, you've got to live the part. So for the last month, I've been living on a diet of cattle cake, molasses and grass. Not what you consider a balanced diet, but it meant we could cancel the milkman. Then one day, ring, 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 ring. This is it. "Hello, who is calling?" I said in my best Shakespearean voice. "Is that Mr. Ron Hunt?" "Yes, it is." "Have you had an injury in the past 3 years?" "Get off the line, you fool," or words to that effect. I'm expecting a very important phone call, I shouted downstairs, down the phone. The middle of December came and still no calls. I tried to convince myself that they must have misplaced my phone number, so I decided to take the initiative and ring. Hello, is that Ellen Fitton? It's Ron Hunt here. Who? You said you would ring me about the part of the pantomime cow. Do you remember the Fred Astaire dance routine I did in the bar a few months ago? Oh, yes, I'm afraid that part has gone. 2 chorus girls are doing it. I bet the 2 18-year-old blondes, I thought, disappointingly. But we do need a gorilla. Oh, I suppose changing my mindset from a cow to a gorilla wouldn't take much doing. OK, I'll do it, I said, trying to be blasé. Well, just come down to the dress rehearsal. It's on the Sunday before the pantomime starts, to try on your costume. Ask for Ellen Fitton, that's me. I rang my wife. Cancel the orders for the cattle cake, molasses and grass, and ring fifes. The week of the panto came, and on Sunday I duly arrived at the designated time and made up my way backstage. Hi, Ellen. Who are you? Sorry, cast members and stage crew only, she said, waving her hand at me in a dismissive sort of gesture. Oh, but I am cast. I'm the gorilla. Oh, yes, she said with a faint hint of recognition in her voice. Go up to the wardrobe room. There's a couple of gorilla costumes you can try on. The first costume I tried on was, well, it was a bit tight in certain areas. The other one was okay, but it smelt like the theatre tomcat I'd been using as a home for the last couple of years. Still, it was the better of 2 evils. If I had to wear the first costume I tried on every night for 2 weeks, I'd have ended up sounding like Aled Jones singing Walking in the Air, the Snowman song. It was time for the dress rehearsal to start. As I was only due to appear in the second half, I was asked if I would help out backstage, changing the scenery between scenes, moving the props on and off stage. Fine, no problem, I replied in a voice that had sounded like I'd done this many times. Oh, and can you work the knife board in Cullen's knife throwing act? But on the third knife, you have to shout, ah, as if the knife has missed the board and hit one of the stage crew. Yep, I can manage that. Oh, and when the storm starts at the end of Act 1, can you pull the mast down so that it appears that the ship has been wrecked? Ah, easy P, I can do that, yeah. Then it would be my turn. Just come on and follow the remaining crew members round a bit, and then frighten them off one at a time to the song of Bananas in Pyjamas. Is that it? How about a short routine from 42nd Street? No. Siegfried Follies? No. Silk Stockings? No. Do the Funky Gibbon? No, Luke, follow the script. Just chase them round and disappear behind a rock. Reappear and do the same thing again until you've frightened everybody off the stage. Got it? I nodded, but no dancing. No! I got the picture. It appeared my membership of the old farts had been to no avail. Fred would be turning in his grave. The rest of the rehearsal went fine, no problems. I managed to get through the frightening off scene with no major mishaps. Now for the real thing. Opening night, I said to my wife, should I wear the crombie with the fedora and paisley silk scarf, or should I go casual? You're playing a bloody monkey in a pantomime at the Wigan Little Theatre, not Macbeth at the Old Vic, she said. I went casual. The show started and I was directed by the stage manager what to do and when to do it. I duly worked the knife board and shouted, ah, at the correct time. Pull the mast down on cue when the storm raged, dispatching the poor sailors on Sinbad's ship to Davy Jones' locker. The curtain closed, end of Act 1. Act 2 started. It was time to get into my costume, with the help of Elsie the dresser, who ensured me that parts of me weren't visible to the audience. As you always get some kid shouting, it's only a man in a monkey suit. I can see his underpants. Is that your aftershave? Smells like cat pee, Elsie asked as I donned my gorilla head. No, it isn't. And yes, it is, I said as the music started. Bananas in pyjamas are coming down the stairs. This was it, my big moment. Butterflies in my stomach. Panic. I wondered if my matinee idols, Bartholomew, Collins, Hurst and Churnside, had felt the same way before making their debut entrances. If they can do it, so can I. I peeped from behind the rock and sneaked upon the unsuspecting shipwrecked crew members, who were now marooned on this desert island. He's behind you, it's a gorilla. Boo, screamed the excited kids. Exit gorilla. Oh, no, there isn't. Oh, yes, there is. Oh, no, there isn't. Oh, yes, there is. It's only a man in a monkey suit. I can see his underpants. There's always one kid spoiling it for others. I knew a kid like that, always spoiling it for other kids. He told me there was no Father Christmas. I didn't believe him until I asked my boss the next day at work, who told me it was true. You know how it goes until the last crew members were chased off by the gorilla. That was it. It was over far too quickly. My debut performance on stage in front of an audience was a gorilla, not a pantomime horse or a cow. Put a start to my new life as a thespian, as a gorilla. I bet Ian McKellen's first part wasn't King Lear. I wonder if he ever played a monkey in a pantomime. And he wouldn't have said no if he had wanted to dance. Today I'm still known as Ron the Gorilla, or as Mrs. Round once asked, who is this Ron the Kangaroo? If the theatre ever does a stage version of King Kong meets Fred Astaire, I hope there'll be a part for me and two 18-year-old blonde lap dancers. I also played, I think I played the gorilla about 6 times, and I've also played Dracula. There I am as Dracula, and I've also played a snowman. That's me. I also played, as well as witness for the prosecution. I showed you the programme before. I also played in Jane Eyre, which had 2 small parts. I think both of them added together wasn't more than 10 lines. And that's me on the left-hand side in Jane Eyre. Here's a few odds and sods now, which newspaper cuttings, which I found here and from various locations. This one was for a professional director. Now, in 1946, I can't understand why they'd only just started. They only just moved into the actual building in 46, and the first play was only in 48. So why they wanted a professional director, I do not know. He only lasted a year. Don't know, he didn't see eye to eye with the committee, or they found out they didn't need one. It was costing too much, who knows. But this guy, Charles Petry, was a bit of a boy, really. He was born in London during a Zeppelin raid. After school, he became an actor, mainly with probably repertory touring companies. And after he'd been left by, well, mutual consent or got sacked, he became a market gardener in Apley Bridge. He joined the Wigan Examiner as a reporter, and within 3 years he'd become editor. Then he joined the Guardian and eventually the Bolton Evening News, where he wrote about the Octagon Theatre. He retired in 1981, and he died in 1998 at the age of 81. Seems to a bit of a ball, a man about town, did Charles. Sorry, I'm just going. Because he said he was used to, the people say he used to walk around Bolton in a flamboyant looking character, and he regularly took snuff. And a well-known Bolton town centre shop for many years stood a jar of Mr. Petry's snuff. And there was an article in the paper, a quote from the Octagon director, Mr. Wilfred Harris, who said, "The esteem in which the Octagon is held locally and nationally owes not a little to the encouragement so generously given by Charles Petry." Now, this is a newspaper cutting. I don't know if it was the TV Times and the Radio Times. And I asked around, and people can't remember this ever happening. That on the 6th of February 1950, on the home service, was transmitted from Wigan Little Theatre a play, One Evening at Nero's. Now, like I said, I've asked people around who's associated with the theatre, but nobody can remember that one. Another in 1962, I don't even remember the TV programme Candid Camera. I think it just started off then with Jonathan Routh. And this was a cutting out of the local paper. Things went wrong during rehearsals at Wigan Little Theatre. Scenery suddenly collapsed as actors looked on horrified. Props wouldn't work and doors wouldn't open. Nevertheless, the group carried on rehearsing for Agatha Christie's Witness for the Prosecution, not the one I was in. Members of the cast found out that ABC television candid camera prankster Jonathan Routh, unknown to the actors, had arranged with producer Bill Wilson to conceal the candid camera in the balcony. This picture shows members of the cast with Jonathan Routh wearing an unlikeliest of wigs. I suppose that's him there. And this one was a bit more modern. I actually remember watching this play. This was in the Liverpool Echo. Not content with George Orwell, George Formby, Wigan Pier, Ellery Hanley and Uncle Joe's Mintballs, Wigan is about to make another contribution to cultural history. Equus, when penned by Peter Shafter, concerned a group of psychiatrists trying to understand the motives of a young man who blinded 6 horses after riding them naked. However, the sign of a naked man running across the stage of Wigan's Little Theatre is too much for the management. Equus will have to wear underpants. One wonders what qualifications Martin Green needed for the part, but his mum is now busy washing his St. Michael Y fronts so he does not offend. The decision has offended the cast, however, who cry artistic censorship. Maybe they object to playing small parts. But director Jim Stirrup defends the move, saying, "We don't want to bring people for the wrong reasons." That's judging the people of that fair industrious town a little harshly. Among the first to boot were Wigan's Lady Society. They've cancelled for the right reasons, hopefully. And here's a few actors who started their life at Wigan Little Theatre and went on to big and better things. Here's Eva Pope, who I think she was born in Apley Bridge, Shevington. Now, Eva Pope appeared for quite a few years in Coronation Street as Tanya Pooley. I think she was a barmaid at the Rover's Return. She's also appeared in Peak Practice and Bad Girls on Waterloo Road. Now, this guy, I think everybody knows who this is. This is Colin Bean, who played Private Sponge in Dad's Army. He also appeared in Are You Being Served? I actually met Colin a few months before he died. A friend of his took me along with him when he was going to visit him, and he had masses of ephemera to do with Dad's Army, and he loved talking about what they did off set, and yeah, it was really interesting talking to. I've actually got he's actually wrote a book, and I think all his life he was a touring actor, and he appeared in pantomime all over the country. This guy is Greg Patmore. His claim to fame was he played Laius Hayfield in the TV series Hatfields and McCoys with Kevin Costner. His wife also appeared in various plays, and I think in one of the magazines, one of the yearly magazines, was pictures of her and Kevin Costner. They were invited across to Los Angeles for the premiere, and she said that after it was all the things, all these celebrations was open and whatever they do, they're all invited back to Kevin Costner's house. Now, he's also Craig's also appeared in various plays at Wigan Little Theatre, and he's an expert at voiceovers and accents. I think now he has his own business where he does narrations and voiceovers, probably for commercials and things like that. But anybody at the theatre, he used to tutor them if they wanted a Welsh accent or a Scottish accent, German accent. He was the guy who tutored them to get it right. Now, if you go to the theatre, you'll know who this guy is. It's John Churnside, who's for the last few years has played the Dame in the pantomime, but he's also appeared in numerous plays over the year, usually comedy parts, but he has played the straight parts as well. Now, John's also appeared in Coronation Street, Hollyoaks, and The Street. Brian Finch. Now, he didn't actually, I don't think he appeared in any plays, but he's famous for writing novels, and he was associated with the theatre. He actually wrote 150 episodes of Coronation Street, and did a couple of episodes of Doctor Who. And he's most famous. He wrote the script for the film Goodbye, Mr. Tom. And this guy was born and brought up in Wigan, Rodney Litchfield. I think Rodney only died a couple of years ago. He's played in Phoenix Nights, and he was most well known for playing the grumpy guy in Early Doors. Now that's the end of the talk. Before I back in, I'd like to thank the following people who's contributed a lot to this talk. George Richmond, Arthur Lloyd, the permission to use the photographs, and Wigan Lee Archives, Find My Past website, and all newspaper cuttings, and Lancashire Life. The end.